Hello, welcome to the show. This is Hack Hunter, where we review some of the best and worst tattoo artists in the country. Now, this is our Maryland episode, part number 2 of our Maryland episode. Go check out part number 1 if you want to see a phenomenal female artist that just blew our minds. We're absolutely happy to showcase her and her work, so definitely don't miss it. But while we were out there, we couldn't leave Maryland without showing at least 1 or 2 of the questionable artists that we came across. So, without further ado, let me introduce Billy Blades. You can find him working at Billy Blades House of Ink, and you guessed it, he is the owner there, of course, and he's been tattooing for a long time. Billy Blades House of Ink on Instagram. We went back quite a ways looking at his artwork from at least 15 years ago, maybe been tattooing over 20, so go check it out for yourself, but why don't we just show you the highlights. Boom. Oh boy, Billy. Come on, Billy. This is rough. Oh, this has old school written all over it. I mean, look at this rose. This is pretty atypical. We see this kind of rose on really old school tattooers' portfolios all the time. And then just faces like this where you can tell it's not up his alley to do portraiture work. It all looks really overly beat up, scratchy. The eyes, he messed up hard. Just oversaturated, overworked the eyes. It'll be a miracle if any of that white holds up over time. But throughout his whole portfolio, we saw quite a few cover-ups, and here's one that I had to show. Somebody wanted to cover up these epic flames. I don't know why, but here's how Billy did it. Oh, boy. This is strange, isn't it? Really kind of weird, smudgy looking work. He didn't really cover up the flames. You can clearly see them there. He just colored them green. For some reason, the Joker's eyebrows are on fire there. Doesn't make any sense. One thing we saw a lot in his portfolio is really lazy line work. And this is something, again, I seen it a lot back in the day when I first started my career. Artists would do the same thing where they would just, for some reason, not do full lines in areas. They would just stop outlining some areas, but then other areas would have full outlines. It makes absolutely no sense to do that, especially if you're a trained artist or if you've studied art and design in any way. You'd know that it's very important where you choose to put hard lines versus soft lines, and so it's really strange to see that. That to me tells me right off the bat that he's just an artist that probably didn't actually have any education in art or really attempt learning in art at all, and you'll see what I mean as I go along here. Here's another cover-up. Somebody wanted to cover up this epic fairy. Here's the outline version of it, and again, these real old school looking roses. I'm really not a fan of these. These are from way back in the day. A lot of us tattoo artists that have been at it for a while, we were trained on these type of roses. We had to draw them over and over again and create flash designs out of them. But it just shocks me when artists don't ever evolve and they keep doing that same rose throughout their whole career, especially when clients don't really ask for it. See how it looks colored though. Look at this. Oh, really muddied up, blotchy color. It lacks a certain vibrancy, right? And the reason being is because he's just overworking the skin. And it's really indicative of that. I see this a lot when artists really overwork the skin with their colors. You just get this blotchy, muddy look. The colors aren't vibrant anymore because the skin can't really hold on to as much of the pigment as you want them to, especially when it's overworked. Another major red flag. Oh my gosh, these dots. Look at the points of these leaves and the points on the vine. Why is there a dot at the end of each one? Let that be a lesson to any of the new artists that might be watching this show. You guys, you cannot start your line at the point. If you start your line right here and work your way in, then you're going to get a dot. Just because that extra few seconds that you pause there is going to create this extra blurry ink. And so you need to start from the inside and work your way out to a point to avoid this. So it's very shocking when you see an artist of 20 years experience where you see a dot on the end of each one of these points. Look at how gnarly those are. That is just a huge red flag, you guys. Something that you can easily look for when you're searching for a tattoo artist. You want to know if they're good. If you see those dots, definitely stay away. Here's another cover-up. Gnarly. I don't blame him for wanting to cover it up. Here's what he did, and this is a fully healed piece. I'll give him a little bit of credit. This is on what we refer to as the ditch of the side here. Right below your rib cage, there's this squishy skin on the side of your body where it's very elastic, it stretches a lot, and because of that, it makes it really difficult for our needles to puncture. Sometimes they'll just bounce off the skin rather than puncturing evenly, and so you need an artist that's well-trained and knows how to mitigate that. But obviously, Billy here is not, which is why you see some areas where the lines are real blotchy, and other areas where the line's very faint. That's why, is because sometimes his needle is puncturing well and sometimes it's not. Sometimes he's going too deep so you get this blowout, and then sometimes it's too shallow so the lines pretty much just disappear like it did right here. And also the color, again, very dull colors. Lets me know he really doesn't have his application game down. Now here's a fresh piece, right? Compare this to the healed one, and you can see this is what you need to know as clients that are looking for artists. You need to know what it's going to look like when it's healed. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter how much you like an artist's artwork. If it's going to look like trash when it heals, then you want to avoid them regardless. And here again, just skipping lines for some reason. They just just aren't there. They should be, but they're not. And yeah, look at how beat up this skin is down here. So you can tell he's trying to create some sort of whip blend effect, but the way he's applying it really is just beating up that top layer of skin, just scratching the surface. Some of you may have known the term scratcher, and this is a derogatory term for somebody who usually tattoos out of their basement or their kitchen or something and was never professionally trained. Well, that's where the term comes from, is because a lot of times they're not getting to the proper depth and they're not saturating properly, and so they're just scratching the surface. And there's a reason why we don't use that term on this show, though, because the reason we call them hacks is because we're dealing with artists that are working at studios. Because everybody knows if you go get tattooed out of a kitchen, you're most likely going to get a shitty tattoo, right? So we don't need to warn you guys about those kind of artists. We need to warn you about artists that work out of studios that when you walk in, you assume they know what they're doing, but then you get something like this and you're surprised by it. Well, now if you learn how to really analyze their portfolio, you can definitely avoid it. But man, one of my main beefs though was his design work. This is just so strange. Is this skull like shooting through the air? What are these whips here? This is real weird. This kind of jumbled mess. It's really hard to tell what's going on in this piece. And this red here, this beat up red gray shading here, this is just what happens when an artist overworks their light gray. They're trying to get it really light, so they really just overwork the top layer of skin, and it creates this red sepia tone. And usually it means that when it heals, you're going to have barely any ink left in the skin. Major red flag to look out for. But yeah, his designs were just strange, like this Medusa with all these little wiener looking snakes on her head just popping out. Just bad news all around. This was an idea that I actually liked. I thought it was kind of cool, a statue bust turning into an angel. I think it would have been a lot cooler in realism, but you know, that's not really Billy's style anyway. But when we zoom in, we see all these airs, like look at her hand. Why are there only 3 fingers? And I think this little piece of hair here was supposed to be a finger, but he mistook it for hair, so he colored it blue. And what happened to her thumb? There's just an empty area where her thumb would be. What the hell is that? Why would you skip that line? That's kind of an important line right there. What the hell? I'm sure this person paid for all her fingers. Why didn't you give him all the fingers? Here's some of his attempt at realism, I guess. But again, every line we see, missing whiskers, these clumpy chin hairs like they always are, and then of course some of these really old school roses mixed in. But my least favorite part about this is the single line filigree here. This is such a lazy afterthought to just put some of this filigree in there. That is so old and outdated. There's got to be a way to elevate and come up with something new. But when I see an artist like this redoing the same stuff that they used to do 20 years ago, it's just very disappointing. So guys, be warned, be wary. If you live out there in Abingdon, Maryland, Billy Blades ends up on our hit list. Before I go, though, I just want to say thank you all to all you subscribers, you guys that follow us and you share our episodes. I really appreciate it. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, they don't really like to share our show for obvious reasons, and so most of the time it's word of mouth that we get shared, and I really, really appreciate it to all of you. So thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you in the next city.